The studio lights blazed down like interrogation lamps as talk show host Richard Thornton adjusted his silk tie and smiled at the camera with the confidence of a man who had never lost an argument on live television. What he didn't know was that the man sitting across from him in the simple dark suit wasn't just a boxer. He was about to witness Muhammad Ali deliver an answer so powerful that it would silence him completely and bring an entire studio audience to their feet. But they had no idea they were facing the greatest mind in sports history, and what happened next would become one of the most legendary moments ever broadcast on American television. Before we dive into this incredible story of the greatest facing hostile questioning on live TV, let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. If you believe in standing up for your convictions even when the whole world seems against you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that prove true courage isn't about fighting wars, it's about fighting for what you believe in. Now let's get into what really happened when Muhammad Ali walked into that New York television studio in 1967 and changed everything. It was a cold February evening in Manhattan when Muhammad Ali stepped out of the black Lincoln Continental and looked up at the CBS building on West 52nd Street. The building rose into the gray winter sky like a monument to American media power. Ali moved with that distinctive grace that had made him famous in the boxing ring. But tonight he wasn't here to throw punches. He was walking into a different kind of fight, one where words would be his only weapons. The invitation had come 3 days earlier from the Thornton Hour, one of the most watched talk shows in America. Richard Thornton had built his reputation on tough interviews, on asking the questions other hosts were afraid to ask. He'd made senators sweat and celebrities cry. His producers had promised Ali a fair conversation about his boxing career. But Ali knew better. He'd seen Thornton's previous interviews with civil rights activists. He knew exactly what kind of ambush was waiting for him inside that studio. But Muhammad Ali had never backed down from a fight in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. The green room backstage was small and cold. A young production assistant named David Chen brought Ali a cup of water and watched nervously as the champion sat alone, his eyes closed, his lips moving silently in prayer. Chen had grown up watching Ali's fights with his father, and he recognized the look of a man preparing for battle. "Mr. Ali," Chen said quietly, "they're ready for you in 5 minutes." Ali opened his eyes and smiled. "Thank you, young man. Tell me something. You ever watch this show?" Chen hesitated. "Yes, sir. Mr. Thornton can be pretty tough on his guests." Ali nodded slowly. "I've faced tough before. Sonny Liston was tough. Joe Frazier is tough. A man with a microphone and an audience doesn't scare Muhammad Ali." But what Ali didn't know was that Thornton had spent the entire week preparing for this interview. He'd consulted with military officials, gathered statistics, and crafted questions designed to expose Ali as unpatriotic, as a coward hiding behind religion to avoid his duty to America. This wasn't going to be an interview. This was going to be a public execution. The studio audience was packed with 300 people, most of them selected specifically for their conservative views. Thornton's producers had done their homework. They wanted an audience that would applaud the tough questions and jeer at Ali's answers. They wanted television that would make headlines. When Ali walked onto the set, the applause was polite, but restrained. He could feel the hostility in the room, like a physical presence, like stepping into a boxing ring, where the crowd wanted to see him destroyed. But Ali's expression never changed. He moved with that unshakable confidence that came from knowing exactly who he was and what he stood for. Richard Thornton stood to shake Ali's hand, his grip deliberately firm, his smile deliberately cold. "Welcome to the show, Cassius," he said, using Ali's birth name with deliberate disrespect. Ali's eyes flickered for just a moment, but his voice remained calm. "My name is Muhammad Ali. I changed it 3 years ago, and I'd appreciate it if you'd respect that, Mr. Thornton." the audience murmured. This wasn't the submissive guest they'd expected. Thornton's smile tightened as he gestured for Allie to sit. But here's where things got interesting. Instead of sitting in the guest chair that had been positioned slightly lower than Thornton's, "Mr. Thornton," Ollie said, loud enough for the microphones to catch, "I notice my chair is about 4 inches lower than yours. Is that supposed to make me feel small?" Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Thornton's face reddened slightly. "It's just how the set is designed, Mr. Ollie." Ollie smiled. "Well, I've never let anyone make me feel small, and I'm not going to start tonight." He sat down anyway, but somehow, even in the lower chair, he seemed to tower over his host. The cameras began rolling, and Thornton launched into his attack with practiced smoothness. "Let's get right to it, Mr. Alley. You've refused induction into the United States Army. You've claimed conscientious objector status based on your Muslim faith. But critics say you're simply a coward who doesn't want to fight for his country. What do you say to that?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. In the control room, producers watched their monitors with anticipation. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. But Ali didn't flinch. He didn't stammer. He sat perfectly still for a moment, his hands folded calmly in his lap, his eyes meeting Thornton's with absolute steadiness. "Mr. Thornton," Ali began, his voice calm, but carrying an edge that made everyone in the studio lean forward. "You call me a coward for refusing to fight in Vietnam. But let me ask you something. Why should I go 10,000 miles from home to drop bombs on brown people who never called me a name, who never lynched my family, who never put dogs on my children, who never denied me my humanity? What quarrel do I have with the Viet Cong?" The studio fell completely silent. Even Thornton seemed momentarily stunned by the power and clarity of Ali's response. "You talk about fighting for my country," Ali continued, his voice rising with conviction. "I love America. I was born here. I grew up here. But which America are you asking me to fight for? The America that won't let a black man eat at a lunch counter in Mississippi. The America that bombs churches where little black girls are praying. The America that tells me I'm good enough to die for this country, but not good enough to live in it as an equal." A woman in the third row began to applaud, then stopped herself, looking around nervously. But Ali had planted something in that room, a seed of doubt that was beginning to grow in minds that had come prepared to condemn him. Thornton tried to regain control. "But surely, Mr. Ali, you understand that every American has a duty to serve when called. Your country needs you." Ali shook his head slowly. "My country needs me to throw punches at Vietnamese farmers. My country needs me to kill people I've never met, people who never did anything to me or my family. No, sir. My country needs me to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when people like you call me a coward for doing it." But wait, what Thornton said next would push this confrontation to a whole new level. The host pulled out a sheet of paper with theatrical flourish. "Mr. Ali, I have here a list of athletes who have served their country honorably. Joe Louis served in World War II. Jackie Robinson served. Are you saying you're better than them?" Ali's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Those men made their choices, and I respect them for it. But I'm not Joe Louis. I'm not Jackie Robinson. I'm Muhammad Ali, and I have to live with my own conscience. I have to answer to my own God." "Your God?" Thornton pressed. "The same God who commands you to fight in boxing matches. Isn't that hypocritical?" The question was meant to trap Ali, to expose some inconsistency in his beliefs. But Ali was ready. "Mr. Thornton, there's a difference between boxing and war that even a child could understand. In boxing, two men agree to fight. They train for it. They know the rules. Nobody's trying to kill anybody. But war? War is about killing. War is about dropping bombs on villages, about burning crops, about destroying families. My religion forbids me from participating in that kind of violence. He paused, letting his words sink in. And let me tell you something else. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm willing to go to prison for my beliefs. I'm willing to lose everything I've worked for. My title, my money, my freedom. How many people calling me a coward would be willing to do the same? The audience was shifting now, the hostility beginning to crack. A man in the front row who had come to jeer was now nodding slowly, his arms uncrossed. Thornton sensed he was losing control of the narrative. He reached for his most devastating question. "Mr. Ali," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, "let's be honest here. You're a boxer. You make your living hitting people. You've built your entire career on violence. And now you want us to believe you're suddenly a man of peace." It was meant to be the knockout blow, the question that would expose Ali as a fraud. But what happened next would become legendary. Ali leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Thornton's, with an intensity that made the host physically lean back in his chair. "Mr. Thornton, I'm going to say this slowly so you can understand it. When I box, I fight one man at a time. I look him in the eye. I know his name. We shake hands before and after. When it's over, we might become friends. That's competition. That's sport. But war is about killing people you'll never meet, destroying lives you'll never know, creating widows and orphans by the thousands. If you can't see the difference between those two things, then maybe you need to examine your own conscience before you start questioning mine." The studio was dead silent. Not a cough, not a whisper. 300 people sat frozen, watching something they had never expected to see. Richard Thornton, the man who had humiliated senators and made celebrities cry, sitting speechless in his own chair. But Ali wasn't finished. He turned to face the camera directly, speaking not to Thornton anymore, but to every American watching at home. "I want to say something to the people watching tonight. I know many of you came here hoping to see me embarrassed, hoping to see this loud-mouthed boxer put in his place. But I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I believe. I'm proud to be a Muslim. I'm proud to be a black man. And I'm proud to stand up for peace, even when the whole world calls me a coward for it." He stood up from his chair, an unscripted move that sent the producers into a panic. But Ali wasn't leaving. He was making a statement. "You want to know what courage is, Mr. Thornton? Courage isn't dropping bombs from 30,000 feet where you can't see the faces of the people you're killing. Courage is standing here, on your show, in front of your hostile audience, and telling the truth, even though I know it might cost me everything. I have been warned. My lawyers told me to be careful what I say tonight. My managers told me to be diplomatic. But I'm not here to be careful or diplomatic. I'm here to be honest. And the honest truth is that this war is wrong. Killing people who have done nothing to us is wrong. And no amount of patriotic speeches or flag waving can make it right." The first person to stand was a young woman in the back row. She began to applaud, slowly at first, then with increasing intensity. Then the man next to her stood, then another, and another. Within seconds, half the audience was on their feet, applauding Muhammad Ali with a passion that none of them had expected to feel when they walked into that studio. Thornton tried to speak into his microphone, tried to regain control of his show, but his voice was drowned out by the applause. This was live television, and Muhammad Ali had just turned his carefully planned ambush into a moment of triumph. When the applause finally died down, Ali remained standing, looking out at the audience with an expression of profound gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for listening with open hearts. That's all I ever ask of anyone. Just listen. Think for yourself. Don't let anyone tell you what to believe or who to hate. Make up your own mind." He sat back down, and for the first time all evening, Richard Thornton looked at him with something approaching respect. Mr. Ali, Thornton said quietly. I came into this interview thinking I knew who you were. I was wrong. Ali nodded. We're all wrong sometimes, Mr. Thornton. The question is what we do when we realize it. But the moment everyone would remember, the moment that would be replayed on television for decades to come, was that single answer about why he wouldn't fight for his country. In less than 5 minutes, Muhammad Ali had done something that no one had ever done on the Thornton Hour. He had changed minds. He had opened hearts. He had proven that courage isn't about following orders or accepting what you're told. It's about standing up for what you believe in, even when the whole world seems against you. As Muhammad Ali walked out of the CBS building that night, he knew that his words would have consequences. Within months, he would be stripped of his heavyweight title. He would be banned from boxing for 3 years. He would face the possibility of 5 years in prison, but none of that mattered to him. He had stood up for what he believed in, and no one could ever take that away. The story of that night would be told and retold for generations. It would inspire young people to question authority, to think for themselves, to stand up for peace, even when it was unpopular. Richard Thornton would later call it the most important interview of his career. The night he learned that courage comes in many forms, because that's what champions do. They don't just fight battles in the ring, they fight battles that matter, battles for truth and justice and human dignity. And on that cold February night in New York City, Muhammad Ali proved once again why he truly was, and always would be, the greatest. Not because he could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, but because he could stand before a hostile audience and speak the truth with such power that it brought them to their feet. Some victories are won with fists, some are won with words, and the greatest victories of all are won with the courage to be yourself. No matter what the world thinks, that's the legacy of Muhammad Ali. That's what makes him immortal.